The school bell didn't sound like a bell to Leo. It sounded like a sentence, a sharp, shrill alarm that signaled the end of the only safety he had, the classroom. Leo was 12, but he looked 9. He was small for his age, with oversized glasses that constantly slid down his nose and a backpack that looked like it weighed more than he did. He moved through the hallways like a shadow, hugging the lockers, eyes fixed on the scuffed linoleum floor. The goal was simple: become invisible. But invisibility is hard when you are the favorite target of Jason Miller. Jason was a head taller than everyone else, a kid who had learned early that fear was a currency. And he was rich. He didn't just bully Leo, he hunted him. It was a daily ritual, a cruel sport played out in the blind spots of the teacher's vision. Leo pushed through the double doors, the cold autumn air hitting his face. He didn't head for the bus. He didn't head for the pickup line. He walked fast, turning down the narrow alleyway behind the gymnasium. It was the long way home, a shortcut through the weeds and broken pavement, but it was usually empty. Usually, today, the air felt different. It was too quiet. The birds weren't singing. The wind whispered a warning through the chain-link fence. Leo stopped. His heart began a frantic rhythm against his ribs, a trapped bird desperate to escape. He heard the crunch of gravel behind him, then a low, mocking laugh that made his blood turn to ice. Going somewhere, midget? Leo turned slowly. Jason was there, flanked by 2 other boys who wore cruelty like a uniform. They formed a wall, blocking the exit. The alley, once an escape route, was now a cage. I just want to go home, Jason. Leo stammered, his voice betraying him. Jason smirked, stepping closer. He kicked Leo's shin, not hard enough to break a bone, but hard enough to send a shockwave of pain up his leg. Leo stumbled back, his heavy backpack pulling him off balance. He fell hard onto the asphalt, scraping his palms. Home, Jason laughed, looming over him. You don't get to go home until you pay the toll. You know the rules. Leo reached in his pocket, his fingers trembling. He pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, his lunch money for the week. He held it out, a peace offering. Jason swatted it out of his hand. The bill fluttered into a muddy puddle. Not money, Jason sneered. I'm bored, Leo. And you're going to entertain us. He reached down and grabbed the strap of Leo's backpack, hauling him up like a rag doll. Leo squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the punch, waiting for the pain. He felt small. He felt worthless. He felt like the world was a giant boot and he was just an ant waiting to be crushed. Have you ever felt that helpless? Like no matter what you do, you're just stuck in a situation you can't fight your way out of. It's a terrible feeling, being small in a world that feels big and mean. If you've ever been bullied, or if you've ever had to stand up to one, let me know in the comments. And if you believe that bullies eventually get what they deserve, hit that like button. Leo braced himself, but the punch never came. Instead, a sound cut through the air. It started as a low vibrate, a hum that Leo felt in the soles of his shoes before he heard it. Then it grew, a deep, guttural growl that shook the puddles in the alley. It sounded like a storm was brewing, but the sky was clear. Jason froze. His grip on Leo's backpack loosened. The other 2 boys looked around, confused. The growl turned into a roar, a mechanical thunder that bounced off the brick walls of the gymnasium, amplifying until it was deafening. And then they rounded the corner. It wasn't just one motorcycle. It was a fleet. Chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun, black leather absorbing the light, the iron hounds. They didn't ride fast, they rode with a terrifying, deliberate slowness. They filled the alleyway, blocking both ends. Engines revved, a symphony of power that drowned out Jason's nervous breathing. The lead bike, a massive black machine that looked like it was forged from nightmares, rolled to a stop inches from Jason's sneakers. The engine cut, and the silence that followed was heavier than the noise. The rider kicked the kickstand down. He was a mountain of a man. His arms were the size of tree trunks, covered in ink. He wore a cut with a patch that everyone in 3 towns knew to respect. He took off his helmet. It was bare. The same granite face, the same gray streaked beard, the same eyes that missed nothing. He didn't look at Jason. He didn't look at the other bullies. He looked straight at the small, trembling boy on the ground. Leo Bear rumbled. His voice was gravel wrapped in velvet. You okay, little man? Jason's face went pale. All the bravado, all the cruelty drained out of him instantly. He looked from the giant man to the small boy, the math not adding up in his head. I'm okay, Lee whispered, pulling himself up. Bear turned his head slowly, his neck cracking audibly. He looked down at Jason. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just stared. It was the stare of a predator looking at a nuisance. He bothering you? Bear asked Leo, though his eyes never left Jason. We were just playing, Jason squeaked. His voice was an octave higher than usual. Right? Just playing. Bear stepped off the bike. He towered over the teenager. He reached out a massive hand. Jason flinched, expecting a hit, but Bear simply reached past him and picked up the muddy $5 bill from the puddle. He wiped it off carefully on his jeans and handed it to Leo. Doesn't look like playing to me, Bear said softly. Looks like you made my nephew drop his lunch money, nephew. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. The other bikers had dismounted now. Stitch was there, leaning against the alley wall, cleaning his nails with a knife. Doc was crossing his arms, shaking his head. I didn't know, Jason stammered, backing up until he hit the brick wall. I swear I didn't know. See, that's the problem, Bear said, leaning in close. You shouldn't have to know who his family is to treat him with respect. You should just do it because he's a human being. Bear placed a heavy hand on Jason's shoulder. Leo is with us. That means his problems are our problems. And I really hate having problems. Do we have a problem here, son? No, Jason whispered. No problem. Never again. Good. Bear patted his shoulder, a little too hard. No, run along. Jason and his friends didn't walk, they scrambled. They tripped over their own feet in their haste to get out of the alley, their terror lingering long after they vanished. Bear turned back to Leo. The scary mask vanished, replaced by a warm, crook grin. Sorry I'm late, kid. Bike trouble. He tossed Leo a spare helmet. It was slightly too big, just like everything else in Leo's life. Your mom asked me to pick you up. She's working a double shift. Leo put the helmet on. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel small. He climbed onto the back of the massive bike, wrapping his arms around his uncle's leather jacket. As the engines roared back to life, Leo looked at the empty alley. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was part of the pack. Sometimes, the people who look the scariest are the safest ones to be around. And sometimes, the smallest among us have the biggest protectors. Leo went to school the next day. Jason didn't look at him. Nobody bothered him. But Leo didn't use his new protection to become a bully. He used it to be kind. Because he knew what it felt like to be on the ground, and he knew the power of a hand reaching down to pick you up. Family isn't always who you look like. It's who shows up when the storm comes. If you love this story, share it with someone who needs a reminder that they aren't alone. And subscribe for more stories about the heroes hiding in plain sight.